Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today, we've got a very special video for you. This is going to be a top 5 video and a gun gripe sort of combined together a little bit. And we're going to be talking about the top 5 2A victories that we can certainly hang our hat on in living memory. I think that it goes without saying that there's always an attack on our rights and there's an attack on the Second Amendment that's always being fronted all the time. And it seems like we're always on the defensive, trying to protect ourselves from all the crazy stuff that these politicians are trying to do against our rights and everything. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There have been some victories, and we're going to go over those victories in this particular video, and hopefully you can come away with a little bit better sense of accomplishment knowing that your grassroots efforts do such a great job of keeping the wolves at the door with a lot of this stuff. Of course, the anti-gun establishment is terribly angry about some of these, and we are going to go over some of them. So we will. Before we get too crazy involved and into the weeds on this, I would like to thank our friends at Acre Gold for supporting Gun Gripes and 5 Guns in this case. They have some really cool tier-based gold buying subscriptions that you can get in on, which are really handy. It is based on a threshold, so you don't have to really spend a ton of money. You can just select whichever threshold you want to be a part of, and they will actually mail you physical gold. They have a 2.5 gram tier. They do a $100 5 gram tier. You pay into it. When you meet the threshold, they send it out to you. So it's a really great way to invest in gold. You know, with the way that things are going right now, you see food prices, fuel prices, ammo prices, gun prices climbing out the roof. Sometimes having a separate investment or another area to put some of your money into is a great way to kind of stack up some resources. So if you're interested in investing in gold, look at Acre. Check out the link in the description box below and tell them we sent you. Really cool setup. Comes in a little card sort of like this. So that's a 2.5 gram right there. So I got my first shipment of gold the other day. So check them out. It's worth looking into. Probably not the only thing I'd invest in, but certainly something that can be part of a diverse portfolio for your investment purposes. So check them out, Acre Gold. All right. So we're going to get into this, and we made just a little brief list here, Chad. Why don't you go ahead and let's go over number 1.
Okay. So like first things first, we always have to talk about Heller versus DC as a prerequisite to most all of the cases that we have won in recent memory, because Heller did set the precedent for a lot of these cases, you know, to be won in the courts. But one of the main things that I've seen in recent memory is all 50 states have some form of concealed carry. Now, not all states are, you know, a shall issue state like we are here in Georgia, whatever. And there's a lot of states, 21 to be exact, that are constitutional carry states. That's what we'd like to see all 50 states, you know, eventually be. But there is some form of concealed carry licensing in every single state now, although some states might be a little bit more difficult to acquire a license right now. That may change in the future with grassroots efforts from like Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition. You know, more of these 2A victories are certainly apparent in our future. We just have to keep striving for those victories.
I agree. You know, so I will obviously defer here in this statement and saying that I don't think that you should have to have any form of a license to exercise a right. Okay, I'm all for constitutional carry. But if you look at the carry permit / constitutional carry maps, I'll see if we can find one on the internet and post a link down below for you to check out. I'll see if I can find that for you or if Chad can. But it basically shows, it's an interactive map, and as you drag the year across, it'll actually show you the states that adopted carry permits and then went on to constitutional carry. And there has been a very distinct change in culture over the last 20 years, right? Many more states have gotten on board with the idea of constitutional carry. Now, granted, some of them who never issued carry permits before and refused to issue carry permits at least have some type of a system in place that you can at least go through the process and try to apply. It's not ideal. It's not perfect. Would I prefer a constitutional carry? Absolutely, I would. But 20 years ago, 21 states certainly did not have constitutional carry. So that is a victory. That is showing that the direction that society and culture as a whole wants to go is towards an armed populace, right? So that is a win. Totally a win.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good one to start off with. So I'll go ahead and hit up on number 2 here. All right, so this deals with Trump's bump stock executive order, where he arbitrarily and without any authority issued an executive order to ban bump stocks. All right, so this went through a really lengthy court battle, and this one is, we owe the credit on this one to GOA and to Tim Harmson and all the folks that co-signed on to that particular lawsuit. But the Ninth Circuit Court threw out the bump stock case. All right, that's a victory. And I'm going to quote Thomas Massey here, who had a very, very good, astute observation in regards to this particular court case. All right. This decision has big implications beyond the field of guns. A court ruled that Congress makes criminal law. Administrative agencies do not. Okay. So what's going on right now, right? Okay. The ATF, as we sit here right now, the ATF has the DOJ and ATF collectively has submitted two proposals. One is to redefine the definition or to clarify the definition of what constitutes a firearm receiver. The other one is to reclassify pistol braces using this incredibly arbitrary point system. So if you haven't seen those two videos, we have done separate gun gripes on those concepts. Go check them out. And if you want to learn more. And as this video is dropping, the comment period on both of those is still open. We're going to go over that in a second. But the point is, all right, Massey is very, very, very intelligent here to make that observation, because it means that now, if any future president ever comes in, or administrative agency or whoever says, well, we're just going to redetermine this is what it is and this is the way we see it, this essentially, this Ninth Circuit Court ruling ends up letting people know that, that an administrative agency cannot just snap their fingers and make something reality that they want to happen, that we have a process. Laws go through the Congress, they have to get signed off by the president. Like, there is checks and balances in place that these administrative agencies are not allowed to circumvent. So this is a really huge win, because it tells them, hey, you ain't going to sneak this under the rug.
Most of the time. But like we've said this numerous times in the past when we've talked about the bump stock cases and things, but you can't magically say that, oh, well, the bump stock turns your AR into a machine gun, because it sounds like a machine gun. So it must be a machine gun. No, it doesn't work that way. The bump stock was approved. The design was approved years ago because you still maintain a single function of the trigger. And that is the way that the law is written in regards to the difference between a semi-automatic firearm and a machine gun. I mean, it's right there in the GCA and the NFA. So you can't just say, well, it sounds like a machine gun, so therefore it is. It's not. You cannot do that per the letter of the law. And this win basically confirms that. The feeling that we've had for many, many years on this bump stock deal. You cannot just change the science and the physics of how a piece of machinery operates.
Well, like Massey said, you can't change the physical definition of what a machine gun is, or what a firearm is,
not
right?
without going through the legislative process.
Well, right. So everything that the firearms industry has done when it comes to developing new firearms technology, when it comes to developing a pistol, or offering an OEM pistol with a brace on it, or whatever the case may be, or some type of a binary trigger or bump stock device, or whatever, everything has always been under the guise of what federal law says something is and what it isn't. All right? Those definitions are clear. They're there. They're defined. They're distinct. They're clearly defined, and there's really no reason that you can't go, okay, this is what it is, right? That's how you come up with that kind of strange thing where you get into that firearm territory with the short shotguns and things like that, smooth bore firearms and whatnot. All you can do is interpret and not interpret, read the physical definition of what these things are, and it's all right there in black and white.
Well,
they're angry because they want to be able to just swipe a pen and go, well, let's just do this and let's just interpret it and here it is. But they want it to, the issue, and the reason that Ninth Circuit ruling is so important is that the issue is it becomes something that is done under the color of law and not actual law. Okay, because this all has criminal consequences, right? They're saying that if you're possessing a bump stock, that it's the same thing as possessing a machine gun. So what they're saying is what they're gonna fine you $100,000 and throw you in jail for 10 years because you have a piece of plastic that allows the gun to slide back and forth. It's crazy, right? So when something carries such an extreme penalty under the law, what this Ninth Court is saying is an administrative agency does not have the ability or the constitutional authority to arbitrarily decide who is a criminal under such an extreme circumstance without actually changing actual federal law that has to go through congressional process. And I hope that the Ninth Circuit ruling will give us the ammunition required to strike down a lot of things related to the NFA. Now, we're not going to get into that in this particular top 5 here, but I think it's important to make the distinction that polling taxes have already been deemed to be unconstitutional. Okay, back in the 60s, obviously, I think it was a case out of Virginia where they were trying to, charge people extreme polling taxes to vote, like basically charging for the right to vote. And what is a $200 tax stamp but a tax in order to, exercise your constitutional rights? Mm-hmm. Never mind the fact that the NFA was never even supposed to cover short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and things like that. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just know that number 2, this bullet point that we came up with the Ninth Circuit and the bump stock case, does open the doors to having several more victories, and that's a good thing. Number 3, Chad.
All right. So, California's assault weapons ban was thrown out in court.
This is recent.
This is very recent. So, you guys have heard of Judge Benitez before. He had some pretty striking things to say that really pissed off Gavin Newsom and Bonta. He's the Attorney General out there in California, but basically saying that the assault weapons ban in California is 100% unconstitutional. So, the case right now is being appealed by Newsom and by the Attorney General. So FPC is going to be still fighting that appeal in the future. But currently, right now, the assault weapons ban is thrown out. Now, the thing with all these court cases that are coming up in recent memory here and that are being won on the 2A side, that it sets precedents. So for future cases, just like Heller has in the past. Heller set precedents for new 2A cases, and a lot of district courts, the judges and such, they defer back to rulings by judges like Antonin Scalia. So as we move forward in the future with these new cases, each one is going to set a little bit more precedence to get more and more victories in the future. And I think that's what's so cool about this whole deal. But this point here with the California ban could set precedence for never again being able to even introduce a federal level assault weapons ban. We've been talking about them for years. Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, many other representatives and senators, they always want to just dust off these old bills and reinstate the 94 crime bill, the 94 assault weapons ban, but they want to keep it permanent at this point, and they want to include everything under the sun in this. So go ahead.
All right, hang on. In the first paragraph of his 94-page opinion, Judge Benitez lays out the heart of his reasoning colloquially. Quote, the popular AR-15 rifle is a perfect combination of home defense weapon and homeland defense equipment. Mm-hmm. Good for both home and battle, the AR-15 is the kind of versatile gun that lies at the intersection of the kinds of firearms protected under District of Columbia versus Heller and the United States versus Miller. Yet, the state of California makes it a crime to have an AR-15 type rifle. Therefore, this court declares the California statutes to be unconstitutional, end quote.
Benitez also compared the AR-15 to a Swiss Army knife. But this is a huge victory, and I know the authorities in California were just fuming. I mean, just fuming, steaming out their ears.
Authority over anything.
But anyways,
that's the thing. They don't have any authority to tell anybody how to live their life.
The authorities.
I hate it when people say the authorities. They're not the authority over anything. They're definitely not authority over me. Okay. So that is a victory. Mm-hmm. All right, a definite victory. Okay, with the Miller versus Bonta. All right. So number 4 is Kalinga versus Strom. This is also and really, really important one here because this is actually a Supreme Court case. And it was ruled on in a 9-0 across the board. No one dissented against it. It was a unanimous agreement that the police cannot enter your home and confiscate guns without a warrant, especially under the guise of community caretaking. So I'm not going to go into the weeds on this particular story because it would require a lot of time, probably more time than we want to spend in this particular video, but look up Kalinga versus Strom. Basically, the gentleman had an argument with his wife. This was back in 2015, and the police decided to take him to the hospital for a mental health evaluation just to make sure he was okay and everything was cool. And while he was at the hospital, they went back to his house and confiscated his guns.
Without a warrant.
Without a warrant.
Yep.
No warrant. Under the community caretaking guise. Now, here's the issue. Okay, under the community caretaking guise, all right, let's say that an abandoned car is left on the side of the road. Okay? All right? This is, I guess, a pretty good example. All right? And this is where it sort of comes from, so maybe you can understand where they're trying to come from on this. All right, say that your car breaks down the side of the road or whatever, and the car gets abandoned, right? And someone goes and flashes a flashlight in the back seat, and there's a 1911 with the hammer back loaded on the freaking seat right there in plain view. All right, so what do you do if you're a cop? Do you let some moron that's going to grab that gun and go commit a crime with it to get it? Or do you open the car up and do you take control of the gun so that no one can get a hold of it? What would the average person do? Now, I wouldn't break into someone's car, of course, but all right, could that say that if I was on the side of the road and I just see a gun on the side of the road, that I would leave it there? No, of course I don't want to leave it there. Who knows could pick up that gun? A child could pick it up, whatever. So you can understand where you don't want the wrong person getting a hold of a certain item. Where this becomes a huge, huge issue is that you're not talking about a car on the side of the road. You're not talking about a gun laying around on the side of the road or someone dropped their property or lost their property. It happens, right? How many people have had a gun fall off the hood of a vehicle or something? I mean, stuff happens, right? Mistakes happen. We're only human, right? We lose guns, we lose property, and you would obviously want someone to secure that property and keep it from getting into the wrong hands. Where this becomes an issue, we're not talking about the side of the road. We're talking about your home. These guns are in your home, and no one has any right to enter your home and take your guns without due process being adhered to and without a warrant being in place to do so. Now, a lot of people erroneously associated the Kalinga versus Strom as a victory against red flag confiscation, and I don't read into it that way because red flag confiscation, while I very much disagree with red flag laws and I hate them and they're dumb and they're bullcrap, they are supposed to honor due process, at least in the sense of a court issuing a warrant in order to confiscate the guns. Now, the issue is that the court issues the warrant to confiscate your guns without you even being there to defend yourself against and without even knowing who it is that is going after you for this supposed red flag law. You don't know who hates you, who said something about you, what they said about you. You have no ability to defend yourself, to explain yourself. So that is not due process. Due process is I have the ability to face my accuser in a court of law and be judged by a group of my peers in an open and honest environment and be able to present my evidence and everyone talk it out and then be judged by your peers. Being not privy and not present in a court proceeding that involves a warrant being taken out against you for your firearms to be taken away is not due process. That's the issue.
An easy way to understand this is common court system, right? You're innocent until proven guilty. When it comes to red flag laws, you're guilty until you prove your innocence because the burden is on you. If you are the victim of a red flag confiscation order, you have to prove that you are not what your accuser, whoever they may be, says you are. So that's where the issue with due process comes in. You have to prove your innocence instead of the court system having to prove your guilt. And that's where we get into the unconstitutionality, just the blatant unconstitutionality of red flag laws themselves. All right, so number 5, we talked about this in numerous other videos, but we did have a little bit of a victory back in December, okay, with the initial ATF rule change, okay, regarding braces, the reclassification of braces, and how the ATF was going to go about deciding which braces were good, which braces were naughty, and which braces were going to make your pistol an SBR and turn you into a felon overnight. So, as far as I remember, the comments totaled over 100,000. Okay, back in December of 2020. And the ATF just dropped it. They pulled it out of the register. The DOJ just pulled it out. The ATF just went back to the drawing board. So we did consider that a victory. We flooded basically flooded the system, more or less. Now, obviously, they're back. You guys have seen the previous videos already, hopefully. If you haven't, you need to go watch it. All the links will be down in the description box below, but the comment period, as Eric mentioned, is still open on the new brace entry into the Federal Register. And this is where that worksheet comes into play, the point system on how the ATF is going to determine whether or not you have a braced pistol or you have an SBR. But as we mentioned, the arbitrary nature of it is the ATF puts a disclaimer basically at the top that no matter what you score, if you qualify, they can still say that your firearm is an illegal SBR and then throw you under the rug. Okay?
Well, so I'm not a humongous fan of Mitch McConnell. But word on the street is that Mitch McConnell put in a phone call to Regina Lombardo and a few of the people at the DOJ and the ATF and told them to basically where to go.
Back off.
Yeah, that no matter what, you're not going to have our support on this, and they dropped it. I heard that's what it was. Mitch McConnell called and complained, and there was a big talk with the industry, and they realized it was just a terrible idea. So now this current brace situation that's on the docket, it's very much more defined than the one back in December was. Back in December, all they were saying was like, hey, we don't know what the standards are. All we know is that we are going to come up with the standard. We're going to do this, and we want public opinion on it. Well, they canceled that particular item in the Federal Registry. Now we see that they have a worksheet now. So they actually... You could say it was a neutral victory because we didn't get what we thought we were going to get in December with that first brace, reclassification. But now, they have classified it. Now there's a document that says, hey, here's this point system. Now, we've already done a dedicated video on the point system and the new brace proposal as well as the receiver proposal. So make sure you check those out if you want more information.
Hey, look, didn't you tell me the other day that like 141 senators and other representatives had sent a letter to the ATF regarding the new brace classification?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a letter sent with 141 co-signers. They're telling the Department of Justice to drop the brace issue. But don't rest on those laurels. You still need to go and make sure you comment on the Federal Registry. There are two separate items of action that have to be done. You've got to go and comment on the receiver reclassification and the pistol brace reclassification. Two separate items in the registry. We have got to go on there and put in all those comments, right? So I guess that would be our wild card for this particular 5-gun. It's like, what's next? What are we going to do?
Look, so with the brace thing, real quick, we kind of go back into our number 2 topic, okay? A court ruled that Congress makes criminal law. Administrative agencies do not. The ATF is an administrative agency. They are issuing, this document in the register to reinterpret, criminal law. Okay.
Right.
So this goes right back into what we've talked about in the past here in this video, where court cases set precedents.
Right.
So anyways,
the point is though, is that not having a registered short-barreled rifle, for instance, having an unregistered SBR carries the same exact weight and punishment as having an unregistered machine gun. Okay,
Yep.
So that's the thing. They're trying to say that a bump stock is a machine gun. It clearly is not. And right there, big implications beyond the field of guns. A court ruled that Congress makes criminal law, administrative agencies do not. So right there, the Ninth Circuit tells you that you can't just say, all right, well, the ATF approved these braces 12 years ago, and the FBI did not even bother to collect crime data related specifically to brace firearms. So it must not have been an issue, right? But you can't just say, well, we're going to arbitrarily change our mind and have this weird and arbitrary and confusing and purposely screwy point system that is designed to have this extreme weight of law. You know, Joe Snuffy that went in and bought an AR pistol with a brace on it 5 years ago, that don't even pay attention to anything going on in the gun world and don't pay attention to anything and just happens to own one, now all of a sudden doesn't even know if he's a felon or not. I mean, think about how serious that is, right? 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine, or I think it might even be a $250,000 fine.
I think it's $250,000.
Some crazy fine and 10 years in prison for having something that you went and legally purchased and passed a background check. You went through all the regular process. You know, the DOJ and the ATF said it was legal, it was good, it had the letters attached to it. It wasn't a big deal, right? So all this is posturing. It's political posturing by a group of people who obviously hate guns. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate gun owners, and they're going to come up with any way they can to apply pressure to gun owners, and it's a money grab, right? This brace issue is a huge problem. There's over 3 million, I think, is what we figured out. There's almost 3 million braces in circulation. You're talking almost $750 million in revenue that the government can fleece the American citizens for. So for them, they're actually accomplishing two things in one fell swoop. One, they're getting, $750 million in free money that they didn't have to work or do anything to actually earn, like the rest of us actually go out and earn that freaking money. They didn't earn that money. They want to fleece you for it and steal it from you. And then two, they get the accomplishment of having 3 million more names in their crooked little registry that they're not even supposed to keep in the first place, right? So when you look at 4473s, right, you go and you fill out a 4473. The ATF is not supposed to keep a record of those 4473s. Those 4473s are for the purpose of tracing guns when they're used in criminal activity and finding out where they came from initially. But they're not for creating a registry. A registry goes completely against the principles of what the Second Amendment stands for. It's legal for someone to make their own firearm. So if it's legal for someone to make their own firearm, why does the ATF care who has what? What are they afraid of? What is the government afraid of? And that's what you have to ask yourself. What do they have to be afraid of?
Remember in the frame and receiver document, one of the stipulations that the ATF wants to change is the length of time that FFLs have to keep 4473s. No longer would it be 20 years, it would be indefinitely until the business ceases to exist. So basically the ATF can come in anytime, not just 20 years prior, but any time and see those 4473s and request those documents. And you have a record dating back the entire length of your business on every single gun that has left that shop and gone into private hands. Not that it means a whole lot, but it is like the beginning of a federal register or a federal registry of firearms. So that's how it starts.
Give them that little inch, they're going to take a whole mile.
So anyways, all right, the wild card for this video is kind of what's next. And FPC, for example, they have several cases right now that are dealing with not only homemade, 3D printed, and like 80% firearms. Okay, there's some bans in multiple states. New Jersey is one of them on these type of home-built firearms, right? So there's cases regarding home-built guns. Okay, there's also cases related to the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Okay, we've talked about this in the past too, but just a quick refresher. All right, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act protects dealers and manufacturers and distributors from criminal liability from individuals using products that were made and distributed and sold by the firearms industry. So, for example, guy buys a gun, okay? Well, he has that gun for 10 years, and then he decides he's going to commit a crime with it. All right, well, who's to blame? Is it the individual who committed the crime, or is it the gun manufacturer? Is it the dealer that sold the gun? Is it the distributor who put that gun in the dealer's hands to put it into the consumer's hands? So we've talked about this in the past. It's the same thing as blaming a car manufacturer for a drunk driving incident. It's the same thing. But there's multiple court cases right now that, with any luck, okay, if judges actually have common sense and look at the letter of the law and the Constitution as a whole, they will rule in the favor of FPC and other 2A advocacy groups in this topic.
Well,
okay, but
there would not be an automotive industry, period.
Absolutely not.
If automotive manufacturers could be sued because somebody was killed by a drunk driver, there wouldn't be an automotive industry.
Yep.
Okay, and that they want that for the gun industry. They want the gun industry to be sued out of oblivion, and these people are going to be lined up to sue them,
Yeah.
and they'll have so many lawsuits on their hands they won't be able to do anything about it, and they'll have to close their doors. So it's not about what's right and wrong. It's not about holding anyone accountable. It's about removing them from the population, period. Like they want the gun manufacturers to go away.
They want to bankrupt the firearms industry as a whole. That way guns are no longer a problem in their eyes. That's kind of the gist.
Well, it wouldn't be.
So-
Even if every gun manufacturer disappeared tomorrow, it still would not change a dang thing. It's only about them feeling better about themselves and getting over on someone. All it would do is hurt Americans in a way that it would make people lose their jobs and lose their livelihood. And the more people that you have out of work and hard up and life is tough, crime goes up, right? So we saw that in 2020, if you look at a lot of the crime statistics, yes, there's a lot of, the crime is way up, right? There's a lot more shootings and stabbings and arson and theft and murder and all of these terrible things that are happening. But it's a result of culture and a result of what's going on in the world, not a result of long-standing institutions such as the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment didn't force someone to pick up a gun and go rob someone or burn down their business or perform some heinous act against somebody, right? The Second Amendment has protected way more people than it's harmed, okay? So we have to look at this thing from that holistic standpoint. One other tiny victory I'll mention, and then we will let you go. I know this has been a longer top 5 than you're probably used to hearing, but I will mention that another victory that I'll just quickly throw in the mix as we wrap up this video is that look at the change in 2A culture. Look how many more people have become gun owners. They've become ambassadors to the Second Amendment community. They've gotten more involved in their communities in terms of pending legislation and contacting their reps, right? They've gotten more interested and more engaged in the training community and going out and getting training and learning and educating themselves about not only their responsibilities, but their rights and being able to defend themselves more properly, right? They're going out and consuming content such as our YouTube videos. All you have to do is look at the view counts on some of our videos that we made that were aimed towards new gun owners, right? And we saw that those videos got tons of views. So people are obviously like really hungry for information. They're looking to learn, and that's great, right? The more people in the 2A community that we get involved that become a gun owner and become engaged as a citizen, the harder it will be for these people, these anti-gunners, to try and take away your rights, okay? This $200 tax stamp, it's unconstitutional. It's always been unconstitutional. We just haven't had the culture in place to fight it properly, but now we do.
All right, so look, that's one thing I wanted to get into was, I've mentioned it twice in this video already, but I want to hit the point again, all right? These cases set precedents, and everything that happens in the court system, everything that happens pro 2A in the legislative system, even on the state level, we see a lot more state victories than we do than a federal victory these days, just because of Congress and being so deadlocked all the time. And one thing that we were chatting about earlier was, there's a new Hearing Protection Act that was introduced, okay, by a representative or a senator out of Idaho, I believe. But it's posturing, okay. Democrats posture, the Republicans posture. It's the same game, back and forth. But
they know it's not going to go anywhere.
Now look, those of you that are still here, the thing to do with these bills, yes, support these bills. Call your reps and tell them that you want to see these put through committee. And you let them know as well that if they have control of both houses of Congress and there is a Republican in the White House, then they better get off their ass and they better get some work done for the 2A community, which is a constitutionally protected right. Okay, we're not talking about waterfowl and birds and migratory bird tracks and stuff going across public lands and stuff. We're talking about a constitutionally protected right. Okay, that it's been trampled on time and time again.
Doesn't have anything to do with hunting.
But I want to see eventually, down the line, with all these precedents set, with all the legislative victories on the state and possibly the federal level, I want to see the NFA gone. And a baby step would be a Hearing Protection Act of some kind. Okay, removing suppressors from the registry and treating them just like firearms, because that's what they are. I mean, they are an accessory. Okay, and the NFA being removed, an unconstitutional act to be removed from the U.S. Code, I would love to see that.
Well, just ask yourself this before we wrap up, okay? What if you went to vote, right? And we consider our right to vote to be very important. Or let's say you went to write a post on social media or something like that. And for every post you put up on social media, no matter how important it might be to you and very near and dear to you, you had to pay a $200 fee and wait a year to get approval before
to
you could
exercise
post.
your First Amendment right.
Right, to exercise your right. Now, would you be happy with that? Would you sit by and take that? So just because, now I know there might be people watching this video, possibly, that maybe they hate guns and maybe they just want to see where we're coming from or whatever, and maybe they just can't understand why we're so adamant about the importance of gun ownership. And it's okay if you don't recognize that. It's okay if you don't care. But it's not going to change the fact that I have the right to bear arms and it shall not be infringed, right? And paying a $200 fee to exercise a right is morally very, very screwed up. Okay, so I think that if you look at something that you hold near and dear that you feel is a right that's very important to you, or that is a right, and imagine if you had to pay a $200 fee and wait a year to exercise it, you'd be pretty angry about it, I'm pretty sure. So put the shoe on the other foot. It's important to have a little empathy for others, right? You may not necessarily be a gun person or even care about guns, but one day you probably will. People change, right? Your views change. You know, and you can't turn your back on that because one day you're going to need it. Yeah. Trust me, you'll need it. Well, and if you allow them to do that, they're going to trample on other rights as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. We're going to wrap it up here. We've got many, many more videos on the way. You got anything else before we go?
No, other than just in the 2A world with all these new gun owners and such, you know, I know when I was younger, I had different thoughts about politics, about life, about the world. You grow up a little bit, you marry, you have kids, whatever, you have a family, whatever the case might be. You know, your outlook on life as a whole changes, you know, and you get smarter, hopefully. Hopefully you get smarter. And you get a little bit more street smart with things, and you understand how the world works, you know, and you know, to be on the anti-gun side and this socialistic and communistic side of things, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. The older you get, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm hoping that a lot of these new gun owners, they're kind of starting to see that light, perhaps, you know, and maybe this is the cultural change that Eric talked about. I mean, just
let's hope.
Yeah.
The two things I need you to do: definitely go over to the Federal Register and comment on the brace situation and comment on the receiver change situation. Those are two very important items. Also, a little bit of news. I don't know when this particular video will go up or if there's people even still watching at this point. I know this is a long one. But the David Chipman confirmation hearing, or the confirmation vote, got pushed back another week. And that's fresh off the press. It popped up on my phone while we were making this video. So
well then,
keep your ear to the ground on that and make sure that you are pressuring all of the senators and making sure that they know that you do not support David Chipman's confirmation. He's a very bad person for the ATF. Guys, have a good one. Many more videos on the way. Make sure you go over to Ballistic Ink, pick yourself up a snazzy t-shirt. Those funds help support our channel. We got some great man cans for sale. Pick yourself up a merchandise box, and those funds also help support our channel. Also, if you wish to just donate some money, you can donate monthly on Patreon if you'd like to support our channel. Big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We have many other videos on the way. We hope you'll tune in. Make sure you click the notification bell, subscribe, so you get all of our content. A lot of people have been saying they haven't been getting our videos. You have to make sure you're subscribed. In the lower box there, hit the subscription button and make sure that the bell icon is clicked so that you're getting the notifications. Have a great day. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.